And welcome back. Well, today we have on the board president of United Juanita Skillman, and as I mentioned, this is a busy month for them because they had their 2019 business plan presentation. That was last week. Then earlier this week was their regular board meeting, and today is their Meet the Candidates. So,
okay.
Yeah, a lot going on.
Absolutely.
And I know we're going to talk about the 2019 finance, the assessments, and
right.
I don't know if you want to do that first or other things.
No, I'd like to just do a quick recap of the meeting on Tuesday. And if there's anything that piques your interest, please go online and look or watch the replay of the United meeting. We always have consent calendar, and we had 2 approvals of architectural variances. We had 5 tree removal requests. 4 of them were denied and 1 was approved. And we had 4 Finance Committee recommendations for either a lien against someone who is very, very behind in their assessments, or small claims court that we take them through if you don't pay your fines. So in unfinished business, which is basically our first reading of any new business, to me it's always, the other way around. Unfinished business is finished business, so it's ones that we actually vote on. And we had 3 architectural standards that we approved, and those are for doors and the lifts and lift policy, and then again for the exhaust fans. And then we also moved and adopted a resolution for unauthorized alteration fee. What we found is we're getting more and more people who are just going ahead and doing it without getting a permit, without going through our alterations department. And when we find those, and we do because the construction contractors cup is out in front, or they're dumping things or whatever, they get fined, and the fine is $300. And that is in addition to any permits, et cetera, that you have to pull. And it also does not mean that you will not be brought up for a disciplinary hearing for not getting permission to do the work. So again, get permission. Go down to our alterations department. They will walk you through, they will help you, they'll tell you what you need to do with the city, with the village, et cetera. Don't just start doing it on your own. In new business, we passed 3 things that did not require a 30-day notification to our members. One of them was the Village Energy Task Force, and United moved and seconded and passed to comply and be part of that. The task force is evenly with the community. We have 2 GRF and 2 United and 2 Third, and 1 right now from the village, from the towers, excuse me. And so that's getting started, and basically it's looking for the overall needs for energy in the future, the next 5 years. What are we going to need? How are we going to do it? For instance, electric cars have just boomed in the village, whereas 5 years ago we had half a dozen. We now have well over 100. And sometimes it's getting to be difficult for them to find a place to plug in because they hit breakers if you've got 3 or 4 people in that same carport that do it. So we need to have a good study on that. We also approved the 2019 collection and lien enforcement policy, and there were no changes to that policy except the date. And last but not least, a supplemental appropriation for the earthquake insurance. Last December, we took out earthquake insurance for the first time, but it was too late to put it in the 2018 budget. It is in the 2019 budget. So we had to do a supplemental appropriation to pay for it for 2018. Things that will go out on 30-day notification for member comments are things like we came out with policies that basically defined pretty significantly what is harassment, what is nuisance, and what is clutter. Because we have people brought in for discipline for these, and they say, I'm being brought in for a nuisance and I have no idea what a nuisance is. Well, this tells you the kinds of nuisances. If you're being brought into disciplinary for harassment, these are the kinds of things that constitute harassment. And the same way with clutter. Clutter can be very subjective, and we have some very definite things in this policy that tell you what is the clutter that we don't approve of in the village. We introduced a resolution to revise 2 different architectural standards next time, one on floor coverings and one on wrought iron fences. The floor coverings was exterior floor coverings, and that's on balconies and breezeways and patios and things like that. So at our next meeting, we will be looking at those things, the architectural standards and the policies on harassment, nuisance, and clutter, but we'll also be looking at a resolution to update the golf cart plug-in fee and alteration standards on window covers. So also, big thing at our next meeting, we will be presenting the budget for its final approval. Now, there was a televised meeting, and hopefully many of you saw that went over version 2 of our budget. And if I can have the first slide.
Okay, we'll bring that up. Just a moment. There we go.
Just to recap, basically your dues will be increasing by $9.53. And this is the way it breaks down. $5.27 is the mutuals, is United. And $4.26 is GRF. Now, GRF increases it this time because of wage adjustments, added positions that we've had to put into the community to serve, and higher programming costs here for VTV. And you can get details on what all those changes are if you go onto the website and look under GRF. Now, for us, I'm very pleased to say we are so fiscally efficient that we are actually decreasing our operating costs. And that's the 73 cents operating, and that's because in many cases we moved some of the major repairs like waistline remediation and water heaters and painting to our reserves. And so it comes out of a different fund. Those are very large projects. And that's why we are increasing our reserve fund by $5 and our contingency fund, which is our anything that happens that we didn't know was going to happen when we did the budget, by $1. There's still some negotiations going on as to whether that reserve fund should be increased by $5 or $4 or $3 or whatever. We do have a good reserve fund, and that I think is number 2, slide number 2, just as a graph that shows you how our assessments have gone since 2015 to 2019 for the last 5 years. And you'll see it's a very small increase. It's an average of 2% a year, and that is less than the CPI. That is less than most people find. I mean, anything that you get in the grocery store has gone up probably more than 2%. And we have to keep up with what we're having to pay because prices are increased. And then the last slide shows you our reserves. And our reserve fund in 2014 was $21,194,000, and in 2018, $21,869,000. We need to maintain that reserve funding, even though we are taking large amounts out of the reserve fund in order to pay for some of the things that we know have to be done. We've accelerated the program for waistline remediation. We have put in a number of different things that are large dollar amounts, and some of them were already in there, and the funds are in the reserve fund allocated to those projects, but they haven't all been spent. But we are really working at spending all the money that we say we're going to spend, and staff has committed that we will do that. So we want to replenish our reserve fund to make sure that we always have enough to take care of the projects that are in progress and any new things that we find that we have to do. So that's the budget. $9.53 increase in your monthly assessment. And then the last thing I wanted to talk about very briefly, because I know Maggie was on and did a very thorough job on landscaping and the use of Roundup. And we have suspended the use of Roundup for now and are doing some testing and studies to see what other types of products can be used. We have to use something. We can't just let the weeds grow. We don't have the staff to go around and do all of that kind of stuff. And it's very interesting. One of the reasons I brought up, I was given an article from the Chicago Tribune this morning because glyphosate, the main ingredient in Roundup, is also used all over our crops. And this article said they had brought up that particularly grains, all of our cereals, oatmeal, Cheerios, all of these things have large amounts of this high fructose syrup, which has as much glyphosphorus in it as Roundup does. And of course, these are things that you ingest, not just that are out in the air. So we have to kind of balance. We have to look at what we need to do, how we need to do it, and what are some of the other things that might be affecting people instead of just the Roundup.
Right.
And Maggie's done a really good job, and her committee will be coming back with a number of different proposals, et cetera. But I ask all of you out there, take a look at what you're eating. Take your soft drink can and look at the ingredients. Usually the second ingredient after water is high fructose corn syrup. And that means that you are ingesting glyphosate. So it's not just what we spray, but what we eat.
Yeah, that's true. And as Maggie mentioned, there are alternatives, but you have to look at how effective they are and the cost.
And the cost, because the ones that we have found, alternatives, organic alternatives, can be 16 to 20% more costly than Roundup. We really do use very little Roundup. It is not our general spray. We have different ones that we use for turf, etc. Roundup is used for edging and very specific spot herbicides, but we don't do it for general spraying like they do out in the fields.
Right.
And so all those things are being studied. Our staff here, Bruce Hartley and his group, are just so knowledgeable and have dug and dug and dug into the research and have gotten all these facts and figures for us to make decisions on. And we're going through this 100-day test period, and we'll see how that comes out, and we will report back.
All right, very good. And again, if you're watching us in the morning, stay tuned at 10 o'clock. We'll bring you United Meet the Candidates.
Absolutely. We started out with 10 candidates, and we had 2 for various reasons who dropped out. And then today we have 1 who is home ill and will not be in the Meet the Candidates. So we will have 7 candidates for 4 board positions in the Meet the Candidates this morning, and I hope you'll all watch it.
All right, good to see you.
Good
Take
to see
care.
you. Thank you.
All right, bye-bye.